If someone calls you unexpectedly and your chest tightens for half a second, this video is for you. Not because you're rude, not because you're antisocial, and not because something is wrong with you, but because phone calls demand something that certain minds are no longer willing to give. Think about it. A message lets you breathe. A call forces immediacy. No pause, no buffer, no control. And the people who avoid phone calls, they're not avoiding connection. They're protecting something much deeper. The surface myth. Most people assume avoiding phone calls means social anxiety, laziness, poor communication skills, but psychology shows something different. Phone call avoidance has less to do with fear and more to do with cognitive boundaries. A call is not just conversation. It's a sudden demand for emotional presence. You don't just talk, you react. You respond in real time. You manage tone, pace, emotion, and expectations simultaneously. For some minds, that's not casual. It's intrusive. The loss of control factor. Text gives control over timing, words, emotional exposure. Calls remove all three. When the phone rings, you lose preparation time, emotional regulation space, the ability to edit yourself. People who avoid calls tend to be high self-monitors. They think before they speak. They choose words carefully. They don't like being misunderstood. A phone call forces immediacy, where their psychology prefers intention. This isn't weakness, it's precision. Mental bandwidth and cognitive load. Phone calls demand full attention, no multitasking, no quiet processing, no internal pause. People who avoid calls often have high internal dialogue, deep focus tendencies, mental fatigue from constant stimulation. To them, a phone call feels like, stop everything, be here now. And when your mind already runs hot, that demand feels exhausting, not engaging. They're not avoiding you. They're managing mental bandwidth. Emotional transparency, pressure. Text allows emotional buffering. You can soften words, rephrase, delay responses. Phone calls expose hesitation, tone shifts, emotional leaks. For emotionally intelligent people, this matters. They're aware that tone communicates more than words. Silence can be misread. Emotion travels faster than logic. Avoiding phone calls becomes a way to prevent emotional misinterpretation, not distance, accuracy, overexposure to others' emotions. Phone calls are emotionally contagious. You don't just hear words. You absorb mood, stress, urgency, frustration. People who avoid calls often feel others' emotions deeply, internalize tension quickly, leave conversations emotionally drained. They've learned, often unconsciously, that some connections cost more energy than they give. Text filters emotion, calls flood it, avoidance becomes self-preservation. The predictability preference. Calls are unpredictable. You don't know how long they'll last, where they'll go, what emotional state you'll enter. People who avoid calls tend to prefer structured interaction, clear expectations, defined endpoints. They don't dislike conversation. They dislike open-ended emotional demands. Text has an exit. Calls trap you in real-time obligation. Autonomy and psychological boundaries. Phone calls interrupt autonomy. They say, your time belongs to me right now. For people with strong internal boundaries, this feels invasive, even when the caller means well. These individuals value choice, psychological independence, self-directed attention. Avoiding calls is less about avoidance and more about protecting autonomy. Past conditioning and micro-stress. For many, phone calls became associated with bad news, conflict, demands, emergencies. Even subconsciously, the ringtone triggers alertness, not excitement. Over time, the body learns phone call activates stress. Avoidance isn't dramatic. It's conditioned nervous system response. Depth over frequency. People who avoid phone calls often prefer fewer conversations, deeper exchanges, meaning over maintenance. They don't enjoy small talk stretched across 20 minutes. They prefer thoughtful messages, intentional check-ins, conversations with purpose. Calls feel inefficient to minds that value depth. The mislabeling problem. Society labels these people as cold, detached, difficult, but in reality, they're often emotionally observant, internally complex, highly considerate. They know what they say carries weight, so they choose the medium that allows them to speak accurately. Why text feels safer? Text offers emotional distance, time to regulate, reduced performance pressure. For reflective personalities, this isn't avoidance, it's alignment. Their mind works best when given space. When avoidance becomes healthy, avoiding phone calls is healthy when it preserves mental clarity, it prevents emotional overload, it protects focus. It becomes unhealthy only when it replaces all human connection. It's driven by fear rather than choice. Most people who avoid calls aren't isolating, they're curating interaction. What this says about modern psychology: the rise in call avoidance reflects something larger. Modern minds are overstimulated, emotionally saturated, constantly reachable. Avoiding phone calls is a quiet rebellion, not against people, against constant access. If you avoid phone calls, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means you understand something others haven't articulated yet. That attention is valuable, emotional access is powerful, and not every moment deserves immediate availability. You don't owe the world your voice on demand. Sometimes choosing when and how you speak is the most psychologically healthy choice of all.